McDonald's customer looks in bag and gasps, instantly runs back inside. Jason Mosier thought it was just another routine trip to McDonald's. Grab a meal, head home, and call it a night. But when he looked inside the bag, his heart stopped. What he found made him sprint back inside without a second thought. Jason Mosier never thought a simple trip to McDonald's would change the way he saw the world. But sometimes, life has a way of surprising us in the most unexpected places. And this was one of those moments. Jason wasn't the kind of guy who sought out attention. He was just another face in the crowd. One of those men who worked hard, kept his head down, and did what he had to do to support his family. Every day, he donned his steel-toed boots, grabbed his worn-out lunchbox, and set off to the construction site where he worked long, grueling hours under the blazing Tennessee sun. The days were tough, filled with deadlines, noise, and the constant pressure to provide for his wife and two young children waiting for him back home in Knoxville. Life wasn't easy, but Jason never complained. He did what he had to do. But that day was different. It was late. The kind of late that made the air feel heavy with exhaustion. Jason's truck rumbled down Route 25E, his mind drifting between thoughts of work and home. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten much all day. With a sigh, he pulled off near Exit 8, where the familiar golden arches of McDonald's lit up the night like a beacon of comfort. A quick detour, a bite to eat, and then home to his family. At least that's what he thought. The smell hit him first, the unmistakable blend of crispy fries, sizzling burgers, and freshly brewed coffee. Inside, the place was buzzing with life. Families gathered around tables. Teenagers laughed over milkshakes, and the soft hum of conversation filled the air. Jason walked up to the counter, his tired eyes scanning the overhead menu out of habit. He already knew what he wanted, a classic Big Mac meal, large fries, and a soda. Simple. Familiar. Behind the counter stood Hayden, a young employee, maybe 19 or 20, with an easy smile and a friendly demeanor. There was something about him, something Jason couldn't quite put his finger on. He moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, yet still managed to make each customer feel like they mattered. "Evening, sir. What can I get for you?" Hayden's voice was warm, welcoming. Jason placed his order, cracking a tired joke about needing fries more than sleep. Hayden chuckled, punching in the total. $8. A routine moment. A simple transaction. Or so it seemed. Jason pulled out his wallet, swiped his debit card, and waited. Declined. He frowned. That couldn't be right. He tried again. Declined. His stomach sank. His mind raced. Had he forgotten a bill? Had something bounced? No, it had to be a mistake. Hayden's eyes flickered with understanding. Before Jason could react, before embarrassment could fully sink in, the young man did something unexpected. Without hesitation, Hayden pulled out his own debit card, swiped it, and smiled. "Don't worry about it, sir. I got you." Jason blinked, stunned. No, you don't have to." Hayden shook his head, his smile unwavering. "Seriously, it's no big deal. Consider it a gift." For a moment, Jason didn't know what to say. A million thoughts collided in his head, but all he could manage was a quiet, humbled, "Thank you." He dug into his wallet and found a crumpled $4 bill. It wasn't much, but it was something. "I'll come back and pay you the rest," Jason promised. Hayden simply nodded. "Whenever you can." Jason took his bag, thanked the young man one last time, and walked out into the cool night air, completely unaware of what awaited him inside that bag. Sliding into his truck, Jason set the bag down on the passenger seat and reached in to grab a fry. That's when he saw it. Nestled between the burger and fries was the $4 he had given Hayden, along with a small, neatly folded note. He unfolded it, his hands trembling slightly. It read in careful handwriting, "Have a blessed day." Jason's heart pounded. He stared at the note, then at the restaurant glowing in his rearview mirror. Without thinking, he flung open the truck door and ran back inside. Jason Mosier stood at the McDonald's counter, the comforting hum of the restaurant filling his ears. He had been here 1,000 times before, ordering the same meal, swiping the same card, and walking out with a familiar bag of food. But tonight was different. Tonight, fate had other plans. Jason's fingers gripped his debit card tightly as he swiped it through the machine. He heard the familiar beep, followed by a momentary pause. Then, the screen flashed the words that sent a cold wave through his chest. Declined. His heart skipped a beat. Jason swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. He could feel the weight of the people standing behind him, their eyes boring into the back of his head. He forced a small, awkward chuckle. "Let me try that again," he mumbled, swiping the card a second time, a little slower this time. Declined. A thin layer of sweat formed at his temples. His mind started racing, trying to recall when his last paycheck had cleared, whether he had overlooked a bill, or if something had gone wrong with his account. It's just $8. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was the crushing embarrassment of standing in a fast food line, feeling exposed and vulnerable, like the world had suddenly zoomed in on him and magnified his flaws. He could feel the tension in his chest, the frustration bubbling beneath his carefully controlled exterior. Behind the counter, Hayden watched him with quiet understanding. The young employee had seen it before, the flustered faces, the apologetic smiles, the desperate pats on empty wallets. But there was something about Jason's face that struck him differently. And then, without a moment's hesitation, Hayden reached into his own pocket and did something that would change Jason's night, perhaps even his outlook on life. With an effortless motion, Hayden swiped his own debit card and punched in the total, offering Jason a reassuring nod. "I got you, don't worry about it," he said, his voice calm and sincere. Jason blinked. "Wait, no, you don't have to do that," he said quickly, shaking his head. His pride kicked in, a reflex honed by years of self-reliance. "Really, I'll figure something out." But Hayden just smiled, a kind, unwavering smile that made it clear he wasn't looking for recognition. "Seriously, man, it's not a big deal," he said. "Happens to everyone." Jason stared at the young man, searching his face for any sign of pity, but there was none. Just kindness. Pure, unfiltered kindness. For a moment, Jason felt something unfamiliar creep into his chest. Gratitude, yes, but also something deeper. A sense of humility. Reluctantly, he nodded. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. Hayden handed him the brown McDonald's bag, and Jason felt the warmth of it in his hands. A warmth that wasn't just from the food inside, but from the generosity it now represented. Jason fumbled through his wallet, hoping to salvage some of his dignity. All he could find were 4 crumpled dollar bills, tucked away in a hidden compartment. He smoothed them out against the counter and handed them to Hayden. "Here, take this," he said, avoiding eye contact. "It's not much, but I'll come back and pay you the rest." Hayden glanced at the money, then back at Jason, and for a second, it seemed like he might refuse. But instead, he took it with a small nod and tucked it away. "Whenever you can," he replied simply. No pressure, no expectation, just understanding. Jason offered a faint smile, grabbed his meal, and turned toward the door. The weight of the encounter sat heavily on his shoulders, but somehow, it felt lighter at the same time. As Jason climbed into his truck, he sat still for a moment, his hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at the McDonald's logo on the bag. His thoughts swirled in his head, bouncing between the frustration of his declined card and the unexpected kindness he had just experienced. He thought about the bills waiting at home, the constant juggling act of finances, and the feeling of always being one step behind. But more than that, he thought about Hayden, the young man who, without hesitation, had stepped in and helped him without making him feel less than. It wasn't just the money. It was what it represented. Had he ever done something like that for someone else? Had he ever reached out without expecting anything in return? Jason's mind drifted back to a memory. Years ago, when he was younger and had helped a stranded driver push their car out of the snow. He hadn't thought much of it at the time. It was just something you did. But now, sitting in his truck, he realized how profound a small act of kindness could be. Maybe it's time to pay it forward, he thought. The world could use more people like Hayden. With a deep breath, he shifted the truck into gear and pulled onto the road, eager to get home and hug his wife and kids just a little tighter tonight. But as he reached into the bag for a fry, his fingers brushed against something unexpected. Jason pulled out a small, folded piece of paper, tucked neatly between the fries and the burger. He unfolded it carefully, his breath catching in his throat as he read the words written in neat, careful handwriting. "Have a blessed day." And right next to it, his $4 untouched. For a second, Jason just stared, his eyes wide, his heart pounding in his chest. His fingers trembled slightly as he held the note, rereading the simple message over and over. The weight of the day melted away in an instant, replaced by a rush of warmth that filled every corner of his heart. He had expected a meal. What he got instead was a lesson. Jason didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He threw the truck in a park, grabbed the note, and ran back inside the restaurant. Jason sat in his truck, the hum of the engine barely registering in his ears. The warmth of the McDonald's bag seeped through his fingers, a reminder of the meal he was about to enjoy. He reached in absent-mindedly, expecting the familiar crinkle of burger wrappers and the golden touch of hot fries. But instead, his fingers brushed against something else, something unexpected. He pulled it out slowly, his brows furrowing in confusion. It was the $4 he had given Hayden just minutes ago. Folded neatly around the money was a small slip of paper. Jason unfolded it with careful hands, and as his eyes scanned the words, his breath caught in his throat. "Have a blessed day." The words were simple. No flourish, no grand gesture. Just pure, unfiltered kindness, scribbled in the careful handwriting of someone who truly meant it. For a moment, Jason just sat there, staring at the note as a wave of emotions crashed over him. He felt his throat tighten, his eyes mist over. It wasn't just the fact that Hayden had covered his meal. It was something deeper. The realization that in a world so often filled with chaos, there were still people who carried light within them, willing to share it with strangers. Jason exhaled sharply, shaking his head in disbelief. This couldn't just end here. He had to do something. Without a second thought, he threw the truck into reverse, tires screeching slightly as he spun back toward the Golden Arches. Bursting through the restaurant doors, Jason scanned the counter, his eyes darting through the crowd until they landed on Hayden. The young employee was wiping down the counter, oblivious to the man storming toward him with a look of determination on his face. Jason held up the note, his voice catching slightly as he spoke. "You put this in my bag." Hayden's face broke into a sheepish smile. "I just wanted to make sure you had a good night," he said, shrugging like it was the most natural thing in the world. Jason was speechless for a moment. He could feel the weight of the day melting off his shoulders, replaced by something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I don't even know what to say," Jason admitted, shaking his head in awe. "People don't do things like this anymore." Hayden chuckled, wiping his hands on his apron. "Maybe they should." Jason let out a breathy laugh, overcome with emotion. He pulled out his phone and held it up. "Can I take a picture? People need to hear about this." Hayden hesitated for a split second before nodding. "Sure, why not?" The camera clicked, capturing not just a smiling face, but a moment in time, one that would soon travel far beyond the walls of that small McDonald's. Later that night, as Jason sat in his living room, staring at the crumpled note resting on the coffee table, he decided to share what had happened. With a few taps on his phone, he uploaded the photo of Hayden, along with a caption that read, "Tonight I learned that kindness isn't dead. I walked into McDonald's, my card got declined, and this young man named Hayden paid for my meal without hesitation. But what really got me was what I found in the bag when I got to my truck. My money, returned with a note that simply said, 'Have a blessed day. We need more people like Hayden in this world.'" He hit post, expecting a few likes from friends and family. What he didn't expect was what happened next. Within minutes, the likes started rolling in, then the shares, then the comments. People from all over the country began sharing their own stories, moments when strangers had stepped in and offered kindness in ways they never expected. Stories of small, seemingly insignificant gestures that had changed their day, their week, even their outlook on life. This restored my faith in humanity. We need more Haydens in the world. What a beautiful act of kindness. Thank you for sharing this. The post exploded overnight. News outlets picked it up, influencers shared it, and soon, the hashtag Have a Blessed Day started trending across social media platforms. Jason couldn't believe it. He had just wanted to acknowledge Hayden's kindness, but instead, he had ignited something much bigger. The story made its way back to the McDonald's corporate office, and before long, Hayden's small act of generosity turned into something extraordinary. The local news arrived at the restaurant, interviewing Hayden and his coworkers. But what touched Jason the most was when he saw people paying it forward at the very same McDonald's. A man in line ahead of him covered the meal of the single mom behind him. A young woman paid for an elderly couple's coffee. The movement was spreading, and it was beautiful. One day, Jason returned to the restaurant and caught Hayden in between shifts. He watched as the young man continued his work, unaware of just how much of an impact he had made. Jason approached him, extending a hand. "I just wanted to say thank you again. You didn't have to do what you did, but you did anyway. And now, well, look at all this." Hayden smiled humbly. "It wasn't much. Just a meal." "No," Jason said, shaking his head. "It was more than that. It was hope." Jason left the McDonald's that day with more than just a meal. He left with a newfound sense of purpose. He realized that kindness wasn't just about grand gestures. It was in the small moments, the simple acts that could turn a bad day into a good one, or even restore someone's faith in humanity. He decided he wanted to be part of the ripple effect. Weeks later, Jason found himself in line at a gas station when the woman in front of him struggled to find enough change to pay for her groceries. Without thinking, Jason stepped forward, his heart pounding, and simply said, "I got you." She looked at him in disbelief, just as he had looked at Hayden that night. And in that moment, Jason realized kindness was contagious. As he walked back to his truck, he pulled the folded note from his wallet, running his fingers over the familiar words that had sparked it all. "Have a blessed day." Jason's story serves as a reminder that kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change lives. So now he passes the challenge on to you. Next time you see someone in need, ask yourself, can I be their Hayden today? And if you do, don't forget to share it with the message that started it all. Have a blessed day. Jason sat in his living room that night, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light over the room. His wife, Emily, curled up on the couch beside him, reading through the thousands of comments flooding his Facebook post. Their two children, barely understanding the full weight of what had happened, were giggling as they scrolled through the photos of Hayden and the now-viral hashtag. Have a blessed day. It was surreal. Just hours ago, he had been standing in that McDonald's, feeling the sting of embarrassment over an $8 meal. Now his story had taken on a life of its own, spreading across the internet like wildfire. And it all boiled down to one simple act of kindness, one moment of unexpected generosity. Jason leaned back, staring at the folded note he had placed on the coffee table. For small words, have a blessed day, but they meant so much more now. They were a reminder, a beacon in a world that often felt indifferent and chaotic. Before today, Jason had always been the type of man who believed kindness was a nice idea, but ultimately life was about working hard and doing what needed to be done. Hayden's gesture, however, cracked something open inside him. It forced him to look at the world differently. He realized how often people are caught up in their own struggles, walking through life with their heads down, unaware of the opportunities they have to make someone else's day better. And more importantly, he realized that kindness didn't have to be grand. It didn't need a stage or an audience. It could be as simple as paying for someone's meal or offering a kind word at the right moment. Jason smiled to himself as he thought back to that split second of hesitation when Hayden swiped his card. It hadn't been an extravagant gesture. It was effortless, natural, and genuine, proof that kindness could exist without conditions or expectations. Why don't more people do this, he wondered. And then it hit him, they can. Emily looked up from her phone, eyes shining with pride. "You know," she said softly, "we should do something too." Jason turned to her, raising an eyebrow. "Do something?" She nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Why not? What if we start paying it forward ourselves? Show the kids how powerful these small acts can be." Their 8-year-old son, Nathan, perked up from his spot on the floor. "Like, buying lunch for my friend at school?" Jason chuckled. "Exactly like that, buddy." It was in that moment he realized this story wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the example he could set for his kids, about making sure they grew up in a world where kindness wasn't the exception, but the expectation. Later that night, as they tucked the kids into bed, Jason whispered, "Always remember, it's not about how much you have, it's about how much you're willing to share." His daughter nodded sleepily and mumbled, "Like Hayden." Jason's chest tightened with emotion. Yes, like Hayden. The next morning, Jason woke up to find his phone buzzing nonstop. He scrolled through messages and notifications. Reporters wanted to interview him. People were sharing their own experiences of unexpected kindness, and even McDonald's corporate office had reached out. A statement from McDonald's popped up on his screen. "We are proud to recognize Hayden for his incredible generosity and for embodying the values we hold dear. Kindness is at the heart of what we do, and we are honored to have him as part of our team." Jason couldn't help but feel a surge of pride, not for himself, but for Hayden. The young man hadn't done it for recognition, but now the world knew his name, and more importantly, they were inspired by his selfless actions. News outlets began covering the story, dubbing Hayden a local hero, and soon, people were showing up at the McDonald's, leaving thank-you notes and even paying for strangers' meals, inspired by the story. It wasn't just about one free meal anymore. It had become a movement. What started as a simple note had now evolved into something much larger than Jason or Hayden could have ever imagined. Across the country, people were embracing the hashtag #HaveABlessedDay, using it as a reminder to practice kindness in their own communities. Strangers left sticky notes on coffee shop counters, gas station pumps, and office desks with those same 4 words, creating ripples of positivity wherever they went. Local businesses in Knoxville even started offering pay-it-forward discounts, where customers could buy an extra meal or coffee for someone in need. And all of it, every single act of kindness, could be traced back to one quiet, humble cashier at a McDonald's near Exit 8. Jason realized something profound. One person really can make a difference. As Jason sat down later that evening, reflecting on everything that had happened over the past 24 hours, he decided to write one final message on Facebook. To everyone who shared this story, thank you. But remember, kindness isn't just about one viral moment. It's about choosing to make someone's day, every single day. So next time you have the chance, be a Hayden. And when you do, don't forget to say, "Have a blessed day." He pressed post and set his phone down, a deep sense of fulfillment washing over him. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the $8 meal, the viral post, or even the media attention. It was about a reminder that in a world filled with struggles, kindness would always be the most valuable currency. And Jason? He was ready to spend it wisely. In the end, Jason realized something profound. Kindness doesn't require wealth, status, or even recognition. It's a gift freely given, capable of transforming not just a single moment but entire lives. Hayden's small gesture reminded the world of a simple truth. Kindness is contagious, and it starts with you. So the next time you find yourself in a position to help, take it. No act is too small, because kindness is the one gift that never runs out, and anyone can give it.